completing the square, but really what you're doing is you're going from standard form and you're converting to vertex form. That's what completing the square does. Because vertex form, oh goodness gracious, vertex form is super helpful. It shows us the vertex. I find a lot of people feel more comfortable in vertex form. All right, so when we talk about, gentlemen, when we talk about perfect squares, this is a perfect square. This is a perfect square binomial because what this means is x plus 2, and then it's times by itself, right? If the two factors are exactly the same, they're perfect squares. So anything that's squared is a perfect square. And we know in vertex form, there is that bracket with the exponent of 2 on it. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through the steps. I'm going to say the steps, and then you're going to be like, Scallion, that makes no sense, and then we're going to work through the steps. Okay, we're going to group the x's together. Then we're going to remove the coefficient of the x squared as a common factor. We're going to take the coefficient of x, we're going to divide it by 2, we're going to square the quotient. Easy peasy, right? Add this number inside the brackets, subtract it from outside the brackets, factor the perfect square, and simplify the numbers. And now you're in vertex form. 6 easy steps. Got it? You guys can do it all by yourself, I'm sure. All right, so here's our first one. So I'm going to take you through the steps. What's step 1? Group the x's, and we're going to do that by putting brackets around the x's. So there, ladies and gentlemen, is step number 1. It's pretty crazy. All right, there we go. Now, step 2 says to remove the coefficient on the x squared as a common factor. This doesn't really apply in this one because what is the coefficient on the x squared? 1, so we're not going to common factor 1 because it's going to be exactly the same, right? So we have a coefficient of 1. So skip step 2. All right, I'm trying to write these notes so that you guys are with me here. Okay, step 3 says take the coefficient of x. So what's the coefficient of x? 6. It's this one right here. So we're going to do this as a side note. So I always like to label my side notes over here. I'm going to take 6, I'm going to divide it by 2. What do I get? 6 divided by 2? 3. Okay, good. And then what am I going to do with that 3? So I divided it by 2. Let me scroll up here. We divided it by 2, and then what did I do? Square. Square the quotient. The quotient is just, in this case, it's the 3. So we're going to square the 3. What's 3 squared? 9. Okay. So we've done, so this is step number 3. Okay, all right. I'm going to rewrite out my equation. And I've got x squared plus 6x. I'm going to leave myself some space. And then I got that plus 5 out there. Right? So I'm going to leave myself some space. So remember that 9 that we just found? Was it a positive or a negative? It was positive, right? Because we squared it, so it's going to be positive. So we're going to add the 9 inside the bracket. And we don't want to change the value of anything. We just want to change how it looks. So what do I have to do outside the bracket? I'm going to subtract 9. Because what's 9 minus 9? 0. So it doesn't change the value of it at all. Everybody good with this? Okay. So now, ladies and gentlemen, you are going to factor that trinomial. Don't worry about anything else. Don't worry about these. We're going to factor this. What are the factors of positive 9 that will add up to 6? 3 and 3. So we're going to have x plus 3 x plus 3, and then if I do this math, that is -4. Forgot my 3 in the brackets. And there you are in vertex form. So I guess this is, so doing the 9s is step 5. Nope, that was, oh, that's step 4, sorry. That was step 4. And then factoring, that's step 5. I'm going to tell you a secret. Yep. I combined these two. What's +5 minus 9 is the -4. That's where I got that from. Okay, easy peasy, right? I'm going to tell you a secret as we go on into more complicated ones. Because, you know, secrets are good. Okay, I'm going to move. Is everybody good? Can I take that off? We good? Alrighty. Okay. So we have a much more complicated one here. Because, you know, we did one easy one and we're experts to move on to the complicated ones. Okay, big deep breath. What's step 1? Group your X's. All right. Step 2. So we're going to common factor out. We're going to common factor out that -1/2. Yeah.
You're on example 4.
Oh, I was like, okay. All right, never mind. Whew. Okay. Step 1. What's step 1? Group the X's. Okay. Whew. I feel better about this because we jumped to a really hard one. So, okay, I feel better. Step 2 is to common factor out the coefficient on the x squared. So 3 gets common factored out. You do not do it to the 16. You just do it to what's inside the brackets. So we're going to have 3 on the outside, and we're going to have x squared minus 4x plus 16. Because if I take that 3 and I leapfrog it back in, I should get right back to that. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, if I'm going too fast or I need to explain something a second time or a different way, please let me know. Okay, step 3 is? Okay, so this is our side note. We're going to do this little side note over here. This is step 3. We're going to take the coefficient on the x. What's the coefficient on the x? What kind of 4? -4. And what are we going to do to that -4? Divided by 2, and then we're going to square it. So what's the answer? +4, right? So I'm going to rewrite this out again. So 3 bracket x squared minus 4x, leave some space, plus 16. Grabbing a different color. So if that was step 3, step 4 is we're going to, what kind of 4 is this? Is this positive or negative? Positive. So we're going to add 4 here. So what are we going to do out here? We're definitely going to -4, but this one has a little bit of a trick to it. If we leapfrog this back in, how many 4s do I have? I got 3 sets of them, right? Isn't that what multiplying is? So if I have 3 sets of +4, don't I need 3 sets of -4? If you guys are like, sure, whatever. So if this has a coefficient out front, it has to have a coefficient in the back. And it's because you have 3 sets of +4, so you have to have your 3 sets of -4. Oh, I don't know what I just did. I don't know. I'm not going to mess with it. Okay. So step 800 or whatever we're on, I think we're on step 5. What's step 5? We got to factor this. What are the factors of positive 4 that will add up to negative 4? Negative 2 and negative 2. They're always going to be the exact same, ladies and gentlemen, because we're dealing with perfect squares. So we are going to have 3x minus 2, x minus 2, plus 16 minus 12. So we are going to have, I'm just rewriting this as x minus 2 squared, and then plus 4. I'm combining those to give me that. Okay, a couple of things that I've been doing in this that I haven't really pointed out to you guys is, if I started with an equation, every line has to have an equal sign. It's okay if you don't write f of x or y down them, because that's the only thing over there, we're not really doing anything, but each line has to have an equal sign. If you forget your equal sign on that last line, that's a half mark deduction. Okay? So if it's an equation, it stays an equation. And you guys can see that that's in vertex form, right? Yeah.
How do you get 4x plus 1, like, in the second step?
This one?
Yeah.
We did this. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. Negative 2 squared is positive 4. So that 4 gets put in here. And it gets taken away from here, because we don't want to change the value of the equation, we just want to change how it looks. Check my work to see if I did it on the last question too.
Yeah, because I'm kind of like confused, like, why we have to look at it.
Because we want to make this a perfect square. We want to make this a perfect square trinomial. Because this isn't a perfect square trinomial. You cannot factor this so that it has 2 factors squared. Like, it won't have 2 of the exact same factors. So we have to add and subtract something away so that we can get a perfect square factor in there.
Oh, okay, so we got the 4 from how we factored something divided by 4. So that's how we can, or
Yes, yeah. Okay. All right. I still haven't told you my secret yet. I don't know when I'm going to tell it to you. Okay, let's try this one. Do you guys want to try this on your own?
Yeah.
Okay, you guys try it on your own. I'm going to try it on my own. Give it a shot. You all can do at least step 1. Right? Everybody can put brackets on it. Oh, this one. Oof. Ugly. Ugly. Ooh, I can tell you my secret in this one. I'll tell you, you don't need a calculator. You're going to want your calculator, but you don't need it. Do it with fractions. Do it with fractions.
No,
What?
I only did the first step.
You only did the first step?
Yeah.
What's step 2?
Factor thingy.
Yep, so take the thingy out. Take the coefficient out on the x squared. Common factor it out of the bracket. You can do that. I did throw up the answer there if you wanna, if you've gotten that far. Let me know when you're ready for me to jump in and explain the steps. Or if you wanna keep practicing on your own. Do you guys want me to take you through the steps? We ready for that? Okay. I did the math just because I needed to do the math, but I don't think that'll be helpful, so I think I'm going to redo it if that's okay with you guys. Give me some more math here. Okay. So let's walk through these steps. So my original equation was f of x equals negative 4x squared minus 12x plus 5. Okay, that's my original. Step 1, group the x's. Step 2 was common factor out the coefficient. So I'm taking out a negative 4. So really I'm dividing this term by negative 4, and I'm dividing this term by negative 4. So you should have a negative 4 on the outside, x squared, and then this should be plus 3x. Did y'all get a plus 3? Yeah? Okay. That's the first trick to this one, is watching your signs. I'm going to leave some space here because I got to add in that side note. So now I'm moving off to my side note, and this is where I get to share my secret with you. Well, almost. So this time I don't have something that's nicely divisible by 2. But I still have to take the 3 and I have to divide it by 2. And then I'm going to square it. Now some of you may have instinctively gone to decimals, and that's okay, that's fine. But this one actually works out really nice if you stay as fractions. Okay, so if I square this, this goes here and here. So this is going to be 9 over 4. You guys would agree with me? Yes? Okay, I squared it okay. So that means I add 9 over 4 in here, and I minus 9 over 4 out here. But what do I have to do to this 9 over 4? Multiply it by, because I have negative 4 groups of this, so I have to have negative 4 groups of that. So I got to times this by negative 4. And that's negative 4 over 1. So I'm just going to leave this as a trinomial for right now. And then I'm going to share my secret with you. So I'm just going to pull this up here for a sec, just so we can multiply some fractions. Negative 9 over 4 times, oh Jeez Louise. Negative 4 over 1. Sorry, that'll come back on in 2 seconds. Negative 4 over 1. So we can multiply these. Negative 4 times a negative 9 gives me positive 36. So we would have 36 over 4, which gives me 9, right? Or there's a quicker way to do this. How many times does 4 go into 4? Once. So I can do this division, and then I'm multiplying negative 9 by a negative 1, and I get positive 9. That's how I do it in my head. I try to reduce my fraction first before I do any multiplying. It helps me. But if that doesn't make sense to you, do the whole thing out. 36 divided by 4, and you'll get the exact same answer. What? Which? The second example? Oh, the side note. Okay, sorry. All right, I'm going to slide over for a second here. So this is this. You just did the math all up there, turns into 9. Okay, so now let me share my secret of all secrets for you. It will work every time. If you've done your side note correctly, your quotient, which is this, right? This is the division thing. The quotient is always the constant in the binomial. So this is going to be x plus 3 over 2 squared plus 14. So the quotient always goes right here. So even if you suck at factoring, or factoring is not your friend, or you just don't have time in your life to do it, if you've done your side note properly, the quotient here always goes here. But pay attention to the sign. Oh, when you guys are done writing that down, I will go back and prove my point. Can I show you? Okay, let's go back to the example right above. What was the quotient here? No, the result was 4. What's the quotient? What's the constant? Go back to this one. What was my quotient? Okay, so it's all, like, even if you can't factor, and there's some really ugly fraction ones that I'm going to ask you to do, even if that's the case, if you do your side note correctly, you can factor it easy peasy. Okay, so the quotient is always the thing that's in the binomial. But you have to pay attention to the sign, because if you mess up your sign, then that's going to cause problems and stuff like that. Okay. All right, we good? We're going to move on to the hard one? Okay. Let's move on to the hard one that I tried to make you do second, which was mean and cruel of me. Okay. Yep. What? You guys need to speak up. Like, I'm old and we're all wearing masks. You need to yell at me. Thanks, Javier. You're harsh. You're supposed to say no, Miss Guy, and you're not old.
No, Miss Guy, you don't look old.
Thanks. Are you good first? All right, so let's go to the hard one. Does this have a constant on it? No. Does it matter? No. Doesn't matter. Okay, so step 1 was group the x's together. I only have x's, so that works out pretty well. Now we have to common factor out that negative half. Okay, we're going to common factor out that negative half. And some of you are going to do it really well, and some of you are going to think this is witchcraft. So when you divide by a decimal, when you divide by a fraction that's less than 1, your quotient's going to be bigger than the number you started with. How many half slices are in 4? If there's 4 full slices, how many half slices are there? 8, right? So if you want to do the math, like if you're really interested in doing the math, or this makes no sense to you at all, take 4 and divide it by -1/2. Because really that's what we're doing with common factoring. How do we divide fractions? You multiply by the reciprocal, right? And so 4 times -2 is -8. That trips people up, and it's some basic like fraction knowledge, and I know all of us are coming at different comfort levels with fractions. And my goal this year is to make you hate them a little bit less. I don't know if I can say make you hate them. That sounds pretty horrible. I'm hoping that you'll walk away from this class and you will not be as intimidated by fractions, because they're really not hard to work with. And you guys have the skill, but you've spent your whole career trying to avoid them. That's what you've done. You've just, if it's a fraction, I'm putting it into a decimal, I'm not even going to try. But unfortunately, I'm taking your calculators away, so you need to know how to deal with fractions. In grade 12, you won't have your calculator for the majority of the course. It's going to be a harsh reality next semester, Harvier. You're going to get good at it. So that's why I'm telling you to practice now. Okay, so step number, I don't know, 400? I don't know what we're on. What's the next one? It's the side note, right? As soon as I leave my space, I know my next step is to do the side note. So the side note is coefficient, -8, divided by 2, and I'm squaring it. What do I get? Square it. 16. Would it help you guys to see that in your side note? Yeah. If that helps, make sure you write that step down. If it doesn't help, it's a side note. I'm not marking any of this. This is like scrap work. So I'm going to add 16 here. What am I going to do? If I add 16 here, I have to, how about subtract 16? And then what do I have to multiply that -16 by? That -1/2. Okay, so now we're going to tighten it up. We're going to factor this. Anybody intimidated by factoring that now that you know my secret? No. So x, and what's the constant in that binomial? -4. And now I got to do this math. -16 times by -1/2. And now it's in vertex form. So where's my vertex of this one? Let's talk about this graph for a second. Where's my vertex? What kind of 4? What kind of 4? It's that opposite sign, right? So it's +4 and +8. Which way does my graph open? Down. And is it going to be narrow or wide? Wide, because it's the fraction, right? Yeah, wide. Okay. How many x-intercepts? 2 x-intercepts. Where's my y-intercept? FYI, this does not tell me anywhere where my y-intercept is. You got to go back up to standard form. Where's my y-intercept? What's the constant on this one? The constant. There is none, so what is it mathematically? No. 0. So really, like, this is saying, like, plus 0 here, right? So where's my y-intercept? So the y-intercept occurs at 0. All right, guys, one last one. You're going to do it yourself, and the answer's already there. Good news, not on the quiz tomorrow. See? Good news.
They're gonna end up on a test.
Oh, it totally is. And your next quiz, this is going to be on.
Yay.
Yay! How do you feel with that one? Terrible? Not bad? The trick, knowing that that quotient is what the factor is, makes this so much easier. Because no one has time in their life to factor that trinomial.
Wait, can you do the second step to the side of the square?
What?
Yeah, after you divide.
What about it?
The second step to the side.
That is it.
Like the.
Well, I didn't do 7/2. I didn't do -3.5 in square decimals. I just left it as a fraction.
Huh?
I don't know how else to say that. I didn't change it to a decimal. I left it as a fraction. So what's the quotient? It's -7 divided by 2. So notice I didn't use any decimals. I just used fractions in this one. You can use decimals, but then I find I have to rely on my calculator, and I don't like that. No, because I can.
It was 3.5. So
Why would I use decimals?
well, I know you wouldn't, but then I don't remember. Wait, but then. So you just left the dividing?
Yep.
You just ignored the dividing?
No, I did the divide. I put it in the, what's the coefficient? It's -7. And what do I do with it?
You divide by 2.
Right, so I just left it like that. I didn't actually execute the divide. I changed the -7 into a fraction. Because what's -3.5 as a fraction? What's -3.5 as a fraction?
Yeah.
It's 7/2. Okay,
Fine.
good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so that is 3.3 part 1. 3.3 part 2 is the exact same thing as this, but now we're doing it with word problems. Okay, so I hope everybody feels okay with that. Probably not, but that's okay. So you guys have the rest of this period, which is about 25 minutes, to work on this assignment. I would encourage you to do that so that if you have any questions, I'm here to help answer them.